Mason talk about spreading the feast and mother culture. Welcome to the diner, where we serve up culture from a short order kitchen. Step up to the counter and let us serve you a slice of mental pie. Not a feast, just a snack. A deep thought to chew on from a big, meaty book. It'll go good with a cup of coffee. Then you get your refreshed self back to the fray with a few new beautiful thoughts to think. It's season 1, and the Blue Plate special is Dr. Timothy Petitsis, The Ethics of Beauty. You know, that huge, intimidating popular theology book that you wish you had time to read? Well, have a couple bites of it with us and join the conversation. Welcome back to the diner. I'm Laura E. Wolf, and I'm here with Lisa Rose. We're the authors of Patterns for Life. And right now we're working on our culture by reading and talking about the ethics of beauty. And we're going to start with a little snippet from just one of the first pages of the Ethics of Beauty, and then we're going to talk about it a little bit. Early on, the first chapter of Dr. Petitsis' book is called "The Opposite of War is Not Peace." Okay,
yeah,
Dr.
that's quite
Petitsis,
a statement, right?
Where are you going with this?
Makes you sit up and pay attention.
So the first thing he says is that the way we think about war in the East and the West is different. So here's him in his own words. How Eastern and Western Christians each thought about the ethics of war. For the West, by the time of the Crusades, war might, in certain circumstances, not be morally ambiguous. A blessed cause for war makes the war an unqualified good, and therefore participating in it is not a sin. Even killing in war is not a sin, but can in fact be part of a holy service that absolves you of your sins. What the Orthodox Byzantines retained was an older notion that war inevitably damages the soul, even in a just cause, in self-defense, or to protect innocence. Participation in war still harms the soul in some measure. In Old Testament terms, blood guilt is incurred in battle. So this is a super important concept. In modern psychological terms, what he's describing, what the church has always known and accepted, is that war is traumatic for everyone on both sides. I can't think of a more pertinent concept to bring to the front. I mean, there's so much war going on in our world today, and let's be honest, there are some Orthodox countries involved in war. And that's something that comes up in conversation as an American Orthodox Christian, you know, with our friends and family who aren't Orthodox. And even just generally politically, when you talk about like the right of self-defense or the Second Amendment or all these things, you will encounter people who say that killing in self-defense is not a sin.
Right.
And they'll get very, very upset if you try to talk about there being something wrong with it. But we have to go back to what Dr. Petitsis is talking about right here, is that killing is always traumatic. It doesn't matter if you have a good reason. You might have a really good reason. Your war might fit all the criteria in the West, what they describe as what they call just war theory. And it does not change the fact that it is going to cause trauma.
Right. Because it's not about the sin per se, like, oh, I did this bad thing, I need to pay for it. It's about what it does to your soul. So it's if you kill someone in self-defense, for example, it's still, you took someone else's life, whether you needed to or not. Like, the need is not the criteria that determines whether you're damaged or not. It's the actual act of taking a person's life that does the damage.
Yeah, that taking of the life itself is something that is not compatible with the kingdom. It's just not. Now, we can contrast this to just war theory, which is, it's got a bunch of criteria, right? These are in the West legitimate reasons why somebody might go to war. You might go for a just cause, to free somebody from slavery. You might go as a last resort. You've tried everything else diplomatically. You might go with the right intentions to help the downtrodden. You might go because legitimate authorities say it's a good idea and the right solution. It might be a proportional response. I mean, think about World War II. The Allies were responding to a truly horrific thing. it might be prudent and have a reasonable hope of success. I mean, okay, it's obvious we're going to win it. It's not even in up for discussion. We might even say that there's a duty of beneficence. It's our duty to fight to end extreme injustices like genocide. And it might be done to deter extreme injustices. These things could all make a conflict a just war. But at the end of the day, this theory is only developed to rationalize war. It doesn't acknowledge that truth that we need to come back to, is that this damage always happens to the soul, right?
Right. And it's, as Petitza says himself, he says its innate destructiveness would overwhelm us unless we bind ourselves tightly to our ultimate holy values. For the Byzantines, that meant the cross of Christ, the church. And you might hear people argue that, the church has these rituals like to bless an army before going into battle, or to bless the soldiers or whatever. But it's not about blessing the war as such. It's not about blessing the killing as though it absolves the soldiers from the damage that's done when they kill. It's about protecting those soldiers, because the church recognizes and understands that when those soldiers go and do their duty and they fight for their country, they are going to be killing other soldiers, other people made in the image of God. And there is like we said, their damage will be done to their souls. And so the prayers that they pray for the soldiers are to protect their souls, to mitigate the damage. It's kind of a kind of inoculation, right? We send our soldiers into war. We don't send them without protection, without armor, like without physical protection of some kind. And so the church is offering them this spiritual protection,
which they need, even if they aren't explicitly involved in killing, even if they aren't the one to pull the trigger in a specific act of violence. My husband is an Iraqi war veteran, and our priest blessed his armor before he left. He blessed him, he blessed his armor, and the prayers were, well, like Orthodox prayers. They can sound very poetic and strong, but the way he explained it to us afterward is that this is about spiritual protection, because there are always demonic forces at work anytime there's war. And so for any human being to enter the fray, as it were, we need to, like Petitza says, we need to cling to the cross. We need the protection of our guardian angel. We need all the spiritual help we can get so that we're not spiritually crippled by the sheer ugliness that we're going to see. Remember that Petitza described trauma as a force feeding of knowledge of good and evil. And that is what war is. When you look at, we all know this now. You can go on the internet and look up any sort of, war coverage and war zones. You can see the videos, you can hear people's stories. Knowing that these things happen in reality, is heartbreaking in the true sense of the word. How do you recover from your heart being broken, of living in this, on one hand, this beautiful world that God made that coexists with such senseless, horrific violence? We need the protection from this. And one of the things that Petitza says that brings it all back to Christ is to remember that Christ is, in one sense, the ultimate trauma victim. Do you remember when he uses that phrase? He uses it several times, because it was one of those things that made me stop and put the book down. And I said, whoa.
Yeah.
Christ, our Lord Jesus Christ, is the ultimate trauma victim. He takes on all the knowledge of good and evil. And when I'm reading this book, I'm seeing him in my mind's eye hanging on the cross in full knowledge of everything that humanity has had to offer over the millennia. And still giving himself up for us. That is the ultimate trauma victim. That turns everything on its head, in terms of trauma discourse. Because we talk about healing from our trauma and getting past our trauma. Christ isn't healing his trauma or getting past his trauma. he's taking on the trauma and he's transforming the cosmos. Ah!
Yeah. Yeah. It's, that gives me chills all over. Right. Like, and when the most, recent stuff started happening in the Middle East, like I just had a sense of the weight of what is happening. And I, like you said, like that image of Christ on the cross, taking it all on himself, and bearing, like, we're just adding to the weight, day by day, we're just adding to it. But he's still, like, he takes it all on, everything that has been done, everything that will be done. It's hard to put it into words, but it's there in my heart, that image. It's just breathtaking.
Well, and moreover, this idea of trauma. So Christ is the ultimate trauma sufferer. What are we supposed to do with that? And then immediately after that, I think of Saint Sakharov, and his image of the inverted pyramid, right? When we become Christ's friends, we're not getting over our traumas. We're not being forced to become unbroken on our own. If we're his friends, we'll go to the bottom of the pyramid with him. It's an inverted pyramid. It's Christ on the bottom of the pyramid holding up the cosmos, this broken cosmos. Yeah. And he says, if you're my friend, come be with me. So we go down and we say, okay, Lord, I can bear this little bit. If you help me, yeah. If you teach me, if you give me the grace to do it, I will bear my little bit with you. This picture of him just bearing the unbearable, and we can't do it. It's nothing that we do of our own good, but we can say, I'll be with you, Jesus. I'll join you in the garden, right?
I've been listening to a series of lectures by Father Thomas Hopko, and the series is about the Trinity, but one of the most recent lectures, he was talking about how we have to be co-sufferers with Christ. And that it caught my attention, probably after having read this book, that we are called to join him in his suffering as much as we're able to bear. Like, we don't have to bear it all right now. We're not ready for that yet.
No.
But we do what we can to co-suffer with him. And that does turn everything upside down. Like, it's not the way we're used to thinking about things. We're used to thinking about getting away from the suffering, getting away from anything that's bad. Let me escape from that.
Well, in this sense, Orthodox Christianity is very realist. And it reminds me actually a lot of, when you read like Buddhist teachers and whatever, one of the things they talk about is in order to heal from anything, you have to accept reality as it is. And that is what Christ is doing here. This is what the Orthodox Church is teaching us. This is reality as it is. It's possible that you may never heal from your trauma, but Christ is going to bear it for you. You can bear it with him. Reality is that trauma is going to keep coming at us. We're getting force-fed by this, tree of knowledge of good and evil. Wars are going to keep happening. And it doesn't matter if we think it's just or not, it's still going to hurt our hearts that these things happen. And that's reality. This is acceptance of reality. It doesn't matter if the war is just. It doesn't matter if the trauma could or shouldn't have happened or should have been better or whatever. It is what it is. It's reality. We need to know how to live with what we have now. And the church gives us this now. The church gives us the answer, and Petitus is showing us the way. So I think that's also a good place to end for the day, because we want you guys to think about this stuff. That's enough to think about. That's a very rich, meaty slice of pie right there. I think I might have given you too much whipped cream, too much.
Oh, that can keep you going for a long time.
So what should they think about this week, Lisa? What are we going to tell people to think about?
Yeah, so, let's just take this week to think about our own views of war. What is your own view of war? And does rationalizing our actions, like with the just war theory, with all of those reasons, does that nullify their spiritual consequences? Like, does having a good reason take away any effects that this has on your soul? So spend some time with that, and you can visit our Substack, orthodoxcm.substack.com, and you can comment and engage in the conversation there. And we will see you next time.